Morning, we are doing our part to help you digest everything from the debate and verifying some of those claims.
As journalists, it is our duty to help get you the facts. And this morning, we're taking a closer look at what both candidates said on Tuesday night. A lot of questionable claims, of course, when it comes to coronavirus. At one point, the president saying children are not vulnerable to COVID-19, calling them, quote, virtually immune. In fact, medical experts have said that children are less likely to show serious symptoms, but can still transmit the virus. There remains no evidence that children are immune.
And on the law and order portion of Tuesday's debate, Joe Biden claims violent crime dropped 15% during the Obama administration and has since gone up. That, too, not 100% accurate. In fact, according to FBI crime stats, violent crime has continued to go down under President Trump, but murders have seen an uptick recently. With both candidates making statements, these are just a few of the corrections we wanted to highlight this morning.
There's no denying it was a chaotic night, overwhelming at times. Right now, we're going to continue our coverage and analysis of that debate from overnight. Here to help us recap, USI political science professor Dr. Nick LaRoe. Dr. LaRoe, we want to thank you for waking up with us this morning.
Oh, thank you. Good morning.
First thing, that debate, it started a couple of minutes late, but a couple minutes into the debate, I think it was clear how the next 90 minutes were going to play out. First thing I want to ask you, just what is your reaction to what you watched on Tuesday night?
It was a long 90 minutes, very contentious, hard to watch, and so it was very aggressive. I don't know that a lot of people felt very good coming out of this, no matter who you supported or whether you were still trying to make up your mind.
You know, Nick, one of the major topics coming out of that debate, COVID-19, of course, it can't be ignored right now, but that open Supreme Court seat, it's a point of contention between Democrats and Republicans, of course. Moderator Chris Wallace asking both candidates their position on Judge Amy Coney Barrett. Let's just take a listen.
So I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time.
So the president saying here, Republicans, of course, won the election, so it is now their job to fill that seat. But many argue that this should not happen until after the election. Just what is your takeaway?
Well, it's interesting because if people remember from 4 years ago, we were in almost exactly the same situation, and Senate Republicans said that this should be an issue decided by the American people. Now that's changed. McConnell has kind of qualified the argument to say, well, what was different about 2016 is that the president and Republicans and Senate were of different parties. So I don't know whether that nuance works for people or whether they see it as just basically two standards. But I don't know how many people even care at this point. Is kind of, if your party can do it, the people on your side kind of want you to do it. So we'll see what happens.
Now, for many young debate students out there, you know, they tuned into this 90-minute spectacle last night that was probably viewed by 120 million people by some estimates. Is this a good illustration of how a debate is conducted in a conventional format?
No. I mean, I could just end the answer at no. No, I mean, in debates, there's always been kind of cross-talk and talking over the moderator, but this was kind of beyond what you've seen even in past debates. I think the strategy for President Trump here was to try to make Vice President Biden crack. Vice President Biden, you know, on his part, needed to show that he could stand up to it. So it was very hard to hear what either candidate would actually do. They seem to have different plans than actually explaining their positions.
Another prominent component to this is the moderator. Chris Wallace was the moderator last night. He will not be the moderator for all these debates, but you know, it becomes very important in wrangling these two personalities on that stage for 90 minutes. How well of a job do you think he did last night?
I think Chris Wallace is a really good journalist, and I think he probably did as well as possible without having the power to turn off the candidates' microphones. It's kind of a tightrope. You want to create order, but on the other hand, you're not the candidate. It's for the American people to choose, and so you do have to give them some respect just by the fact that they're going to be the people's choice. So it's a really difficult situation. I don't think it went well, but I'm not sure how easy it would have been to do better for anybody.
I mean, awfully contentious at times between Chris Wallace and President Donald Trump. I think at one point Chris even said, you know, if you want to switch seats here, we can do that. But obviously that is not something that obviously happened. Nick, one thing that I think, you know, obviously we're all voters. And one thing that we want to hear from this morning, reaction from voters. Let's listen.
I don't think I can say that either or one. I think that it was a twister. It was a wild ride. It went right. It went left. There was a lot going on. There was a lot of interruption.
So, Nick, hearing from a voter right there, you know, I don't think any candidate won. Would you kind of say the same thing? Would you say somebody came out on top?
Hard to say. And these, you know, your perceptions of who won is really filtered through who you support. So I would say that a lot of times we talk about this in terms of meeting expectations. I think Joe Biden met the expectation in that he didn't have kind of a bad moment or a gaffe or a wilt. And I think President Trump came off as an aggressive fighter, which is what his supporters typically want. So, you know, maybe, you know, boxing match, this was kind of a scrum, and we just call it essentially a draw where nobody made a major mistake.
Now, I did kind of want to avoid saying who won the debate because, you know, that's subject to an opinion there. But
sure,
we do want to say who connected to their base best last night. That would be the best way to put that.
I think they both did. Right? President Trump was kind of in his vintage form of being a contentious fighter. I think Joe Biden got a couple of shots in. He had a couple of lines. You know, at this point, it's really about turning out your people, or maybe giving the other side a reason not to turn out, which might have been one of the reasons for the ugliness, is to discourage some people from voting in the first place and just have the candidate with the most enthusiastic supporters win the difference.
Nick, we of course know 2 more debates ahead of this election. I'm going to kind of ask you to put on a political campaign advisor, manager hat, if you will, or just talk to me as a voter. You know, what is going to be a next best strategy for both candidates for this next debate? I think last night a lot of Americans disappointed in what we saw. So just what do you think these guys need to do for October 15th?
Well, Joe Biden has been ahead in most of the polls. As you've noticed, he's keeping a very low profile. So I think for him, kind of holding on to the lead and not making a big mistake is his main strategy there. For President Trump, I think he needs to shake things up to shake off the bad polling results for him. So I would expect him to be very aggressive for the next one. Joe Biden just to kind of make sure that he keeps on maintaining that lead and keeping that steady kind of lower profile. So probably more of the same for the next debate.
Of course, President Trump really not a politician. This is his first elected office, so I don't think much is going to change about his debate techniques. But has Joe Biden changed over the past 6 months? The last time we saw him on stage, he was up there with a collection of other candidates vying for that Democratic nomination. Has something changed in the last 6 months with him?
I think he's basically the same person who you saw. He had a couple of good moments where he, you know, one of his strengths is that he comes across as relatable and kind of an everyman. He had a couple of good moments there. And so I think it was pretty much vintage Joe Biden. Both of these candidates are in their mid to upper 70s. By that point, you pretty much are who you are.
Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Can we retain you for November 4th?
I would love to. Yeah, sure. Happy to talk about all the results in the morning after.
It is going to be an interesting election day, an interesting day after. We know that.
And I imagine, Nick, you can just stay up the whole night after the election votes are counted that night. And then, of course, we'll just have this discussion bright and early that following Wednesday morning.
I'll be sure to grab some coffee beforehand.
All right. USI political science professor Dr. Nick LaRoe. Dr. LaRoe, thank you, of course, for waking up with us this morning.
My pleasure.